Hi everyone, Chaz916 here. Welcome. The D&D saga continues with OGL 1.2 Draft. It's out. I've read it. I also read the WOTC's VTT Policy, and I read the fan content policy. Read all of them several times. Do I completely understand them? No. I think I have a fair grasp. Having said that though, I need to quantify it. Number 1, please remember that the OGL 1.2 is a draft. It's 5 pages long. It's filled with legalese. My legalese is okay, not great. And it's likely to change. And number 2, I am not a lawyer. I can't give you legal advice, and I cannot comment on the legalities, what's legal or what isn't legal in this document, or any of them. A note for content developers. If you have specific questions out there, you really need to check with a lawyer, preferably one that's skilled in licenses. Okay, so after all that effort, what do I think about this new OGL? Well, first off, I think they gave a little, but not much. I believe that they've obscured more, and the rest, well, the rest is just worse than the leaked draft. Okay, so what I want to do is discuss the things that I've read, let you know some of my concerns, and move on. Okay, so number 1, first off, I'd like to discuss what's not in the OGL 1.2. There is no royalty payments, no financial reporting, no registration, no ownership of content. There is owning ours or anything like that, no license back requirements. Basically, there's nothing in here that is going to impact content that you have already published. Note the term already, under OGL 1.0a. Now, all of this sounds great, but I have a concern about what they're leaving out and why. Are they leaving themselves open? I mean, are they leaving this out purposely so that they can come back and amend it later? I don't know. Can you put amendments on an OGL? Not sure. Or maybe they plan to implement these in other ways outside of the OGL, such as in contracts and things like that. I don't know. But it's a concern. Number 2, let's discuss the 1.2. Okay, before I get into the next part, let's take a quick look at the document itself, the OGL 1.2. Okay, it's the document I have in front of you. It's right here. At the top we have the table of contents. Next we have an introduction to the SRD, that's the System Reference Document 5.1, and that's here. Down here we have the creator product badges. You might have heard about these. They were talking about introducing them. Below that we have a notice of deauthorization of OGL 1.0a. I'm going to have more to say about that later. Then we get into the Open Game License 1.2 itself, at least the draft version of it. They go into contents covered, what's licensed, what isn't licensed, who owns what, warranties, disclaimers, modifications, terminations, disclaimers, some miscellaneous policies, and then at the bottom it's the Wizards of the Coast Virtual Tabletop Policy. Okay, so now that I've completed that, let's go back to my discussion, and I'm going to stop right there. Okay, number 2. Let's discuss the OGL 1.2 Notice of Authorization. Okay, so just to get started here, let me read this. The Notice of Deauthorization. Notice of Deauthorization of OGL 1.0, the Open Game License 1.0a, is no longer an authorized license. This means that you may not use that version of the OGL or any previous versions. And please note that, because that's important. To publish SRD content after the effective date. So once this thing becomes effective, we can't use OGL 1.0A or any previous OGL SRD. That's important. It does not mean that any content previously published. In other words, if you've already published it under a version, this will not affect you. Any previous publishing content remains licensed in whatever version of the OGL was in effect when you publish that content. So, well, we're going to get into this, but after having read this thing, I had to ask myself, and I did paraphrase that a little bit at the end, but again, I had to ask myself, why would Hasbro and the WOTC give away D&D 5e and disallow the use of previous SRDs? Are they trying to stop the development of OSR games? I think people are thinking that. I'm thinking that. Anyway, it's definitely a concern. Number 3. Let's discuss the SRD 5.1. Now, the SRD 5.1 basically covers D&D 5e's core mechanics. And the core mechanics are designated SRD 5.1. And what they've decided to do is to make them available under a Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 CC by 4.0 license. Now, I'm going to go into more detail about that later, but let's see what Kyle Brink has to say about it. Now, Kyle Brink is has an executive title. Not sure if that's with Hasbro or with the WOTC. Anyway, this is what he has to say. Creative Commons is a non-profit dedicated to sharing knowledge, and it developed a set of licenses to let creators do just that. Basically, they created license so that people can share their stuff with other people. Okay, the Creative Commons license we picked lets us give everyone those core mechanics forever. Because we don't control the license, releasing the D&D core rules under the Common Creative Commons license will be a decision that we can never change. And under this I agree, and yes, I think it's a good thing, but I think my concern is that they are overvaluing what they are giving. Okay, so why do I say that? Well, the fact is, SRD 5.1 covers the core mechanics. Core mechanics are not copyrightable. Therefore, that kind of begs the question, what exactly are they giving? Well, they're giving us some wording, and they're kind of giving us the go-ahead to use it, which is appreciated, but not necessary. I mean, not required. So I don't know. This is a mixed one. All right, so let's move on. Now, number 4. This one's kind of a tough one. Section 3A and Section 3B. Now, these two sections apply when you have signed on to the OGL 1.2 and D&D produces content that is similar to something that you have produced. If you signed on to these two sections or on to this document, this is going to severely limit your legal options. It's going to make it very difficult for you to market your content and compete against them. It basically shifts the burden of proof as to breach of license and stuff like that to you as the content developer and prevents you from obtaining an injunctions and taking other measures to legally protect your license. So if you are contemplating producing something that they might want to produce later and you are producing D&D content, this can be definitely something you're going to need to be concerned about. Now, so I urge you, get a lawyer's advice on this stuff. Okay, number 5. Let's discuss the WOTC's VTT policy. Now here, there are some real sticky points also. First off, I'd like to make a statement. The WOTC did not create, nor did they invent VTT. They do not have the legal right to define it or to force that definition on anyone. That's just the way it is. Now, they do have a right to create policies based around how their content is used on a VTT. I'm not going to dispute that at all. That's well within their rights. But they are using inventive ways to try to define VTTs in a way in which DMCA rules might apply to them. Those rules aren't designed for VTTs. Their use of this idea in their policies isn't productive. It isn't going to help things down the line. The last thing about this policy I want to mention is the term harmful. They have used this as a reason for terminating licenses and other types of punishments, I guess. Basically, harmful is not defined legally. So the WOTC has included this and decided that they get to decide exactly what is and isn't harmful. So this is an inappropriate in a license. I can understand where they might not want things that are unacceptable by community standards, by government standards, and that kind of stuff should be put in there. But the use of a term like this sounds more like a bullying tactic, something that you can use in marketing. And I think that this is counterproductive for their brand and for the community. Okay, moving on. Number 6. This one surprised me a lot. Even more than them giving out 5.5E as a Creative Commons. This one really surprised me when I looked at it. And if you haven't looked at it, you should. Actually, I have it up here. I want to show you this. Okay, this is it. And if you haven't read this, and you are like me where you are developing fan content for the game, you should read this thing. Because some of the things that we're doing are definitely illegal under this document. Okay, number 1. Now, if you're like me and you're putting up a video about D&D, we all tend to put the D&D logo on there. But according to this policy, that is illegal. Use of their logo is illegal unless you have an open game license with them. Unless you sign on to the open game license, your use of their logo is illegal according to this document. Please go and read this document. Okay, down here it states, unfortunately, you cannot incorporate Wizard's patent game mechanics, which is not totally true. Game mechanics cannot be copyrighted, logos, or trademarks into your fan content without our prior written permission. And as you can see, the D&D logos are included. This definitely affects fan content producers like me, fan content creators. So everybody out there, please look at this document. This can create problems for us. Okay, now there is another little bit here that you should also know about, and that is members only content. Now, while it doesn't spell it out here, it does spell it out in the draft. And that is that members only content might well be in violation of their policies, the fan content policy. I'm not, like I've said before, I'm not a lawyer, but I urge you out there to take a close look, and if you are producing fan content for members only, check into it. Okay, number 7. My revocable concerns. I think this is a concern of everyone out there. Because basically there is a legal question. Can you revoke an irrevocable license? And if you can't, then how are they doing it? OGL 1.0A was irrevocable. So do people have the legal right to revoke an irrevocable license? I don't know. I don't know if this has been tested in court. I'm not a lawyer. But I do know that it raises a concern with me, because if it is an irrevocable license and they are now revoking it, then why would I believe that OGL 1.2 is going to be irrevocable? I mean, you might as well just say this isn't an irrevocable license, right? But they are stating in OGL 1.2 that it is irrevocable except for 2 parts. So my question is, make up your mind, guys. Are your license revocable or not revocable? And be honest about it. That's my concern, is the honesty of what they are doing. Just tell us. We have a right to know, because it will affect our decisions on how we use your products. Closing comments. I believe that everyone and every company has the right to make a fair profit or wage. But I see corporate greed as the killer of a market economy and the American dream. I refuse to financially support companies that don't play fair. Just my policy. That's all for now, folks. Thanks, everyone. See you on the next one. Oh, and Rosie wanted me to say hi. Goodbye for now.